The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, folding closures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au. Welcome to the KRGS Doors podcast. I'm your host, Drew Blackman. The aim of our podcast is to talk to cool people with cool stories, whether it be our suppliers, customers, staff, other business owners, or people from different walks of life, and get to know them a bit better. If you're interested in coming on, drop us a line or email, or connect with us via Facebook, and we can have a chat to see what we can do. Today on episode 28 of the 12-month-old KRGS Doors podcast, I'm joined by KRGS Doors Managing Director Clayton Blackman and the CEO and Managing Director of Woodland Shopfitting, Michael Casablanca. Starting in the early 1980s, Woodland Shopfitting is a leading interior fit-out company, building retail, hospitality and office spaces that enable their customers to create exceptional customer experiences, best showcasing their products and maximising their sales. Woodland Shopfitting's passion is to bring our customers' vision and brand to life. In fact, it's also their mission. Michael's entire career has been spent in the shop fitting industry, where he started as an apprentice and is now CEO and Managing Director of the business. I will also let you in on our next episode's guest. But for now, please welcome to the podcast, Michael Casablanca.
If this doesn't turn you on, folks, you haven't got a switch.
Michael, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. What is the Michael Casablanca story?
Oh, Jesus, that's a long question. We're going to be probably a long answer. Well, what's the Michael Casablanca story? I suppose born in Brisbane, in the great state of Queensland. So born to immigrant parents from Italy who moved over from Italy in the early 70s. And probably late 60s actually, to Griffith, and then moved up to Brisbane. Dad was a builder and passed on sort of a bit of that reputation to me. I sort of grew up and did a trade. Unfortunately, lost my dad when I was 4, but did a trade and had a fantastic supportive family, and ended up being a tradesman with a lot of ideas, a lot of probably a will to continue to improve and to better myself, and wanting to. I suppose when I came through, it was really old school sort of days, late 80s. A lot of work here in Queensland. Expo was on. There was truckloads of work. One of the main things I was sort of learnt through my apprenticeship was, you weren't going to get anywhere in life without any hard work. So something that having Italian heritage, my family sort of, definitely my mum instilled in me, and then my boss, who gave me an opportunity, and I'll always be indebted to him for giving me an opportunity to become an apprentice and teach me a lot of interesting things. I definitely grew up a hell of a lot, being a 15-year-old, coming on working with men and learning different words and different things that happen on site. I was lucky enough to work on the Myer Centre. That was my first main introduction to working on a construction site. So interesting sort of upbringing through that sort of stuff, mate. Pretty simple sort of guy. Loved my cricket, loved my rugby league. A husband to a wonderful wife, Sharon, who's stuck by me for a number of years now. I think we're going on 27 years. 2 great kids, Dane and Brittany. Brittany's 22 and Dane's 19. Brittany's a teacher and Dane's studying industrial design at school. So at uni, Myself, did my trade, decided to look for another opportunity, and that's what I was sort of getting at. I've probably sort of always had this want to sort of better myself. I'll probably, and we all know as we get older, things sort of start to click into place and you understand why things happen. But I always sort of had this understanding or had this want to continue to better myself. But probably till I was about mid to late 20s and started to have a family, that probably didn't really start to materialize, and I didn't understand what that was. It was just in me, sort of thing. Sort of the same with me growing up. wanting to play, cricket and wanting to play grade cricket, played grade footy in Brizzy. Probably unfortunately wanted to play at the highest level, but just wasn't good enough. Sort of stuck around with that for a number of years, but then made a decision to probably let that go and move on and sort of dedicate my life to my family and working hard and establishing myself in my industry.
Cassie, you talk about your trade there, mate. Was it a trade in shop fitting or was it construction to start with?
No. Funny enough, it was a trade as a wood machinist. So the chap I did my apprenticeship with was a pretty sneaky sort of chap. He wood machining back then was a sort of trade where it was a lot less than a carpenter joiner. So we had a lot of carpenter joiners that worked for us, cabinet makers, and due to the fact that I was pretty desperate for a job, looking for something, he needed somebody in the factory at that early stage just to do bits and odds and ends and that sort of thing. He got me on board and gave me an opportunity, and I thank you for that. He was a bit sneaky. He put me on that lower rate, which back then was pretty small, but I hardly did any wood machining. The only wood machining I sort of did was when I went to college, which was funny enough. And you wouldn't get through that. You wouldn't be allowed to do that these days. So, but by third year, I was running the cabinet making section that I was working in. We probably had at that stage. We mainly did a lot of high rise sort of projects. So back then in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, it was the Gold Coast hotel boom. Hotels going up everywhere.
High rises everywhere.
Yeah, so we were doing a lot of that sort of stuff, but we do a lot of the foyer fit out and everything like that, plus a lot of the fitting out of kitchens and wardrobes and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I hardly did any wood machining. It was funny that's what I did, sort of a trade. But basically, I was, a carpenter, joiner, cabinet maker, that sort of thing. Shop fitting back at that time wasn't really known as an industry or a trade.
Yeah.
Well, not that I knew about it. It wasn't until I got my ticket as a tradesman and I moved to Woodland, what it was back then as Woodland Shop and Office Fitters in 92. It's funny story that there was I started at Woodlands the day after the Broncos won their first grand final, and
we won't talk about that game.
We won't talk about how good they played against the pretty ordinary Dragons that day, but
I think we'll just wrap the podcast up now, mate. Thanks for joining us.
We won't talk about how crook I felt the day starting up to my first interview after being at the airport, very intoxicated, welcoming the Broncos back. But it was a massive thing. So apparently I got a good 8 hours sleep and I felt fresh as a daisy the next day. So it started at Woodlands in 92 and once again I've always sort of been a person that I'll just have a go at anything and I'll try and prove my best at it, sort of thing. So got an opportunity. Woodland back then was a small little niche business. They were doing predominantly Michael Hill Jewelers, and Michael Hill were just sort of starting at that sort of stage too. They were sort of starting their big sort of ramp up into the market. Probably doing a few other smaller sort of retailers as well at that stage. And Mark and Sue back then, they were the husband and wife, had the business for a number of years. Mark was sort of the same. He'd worked in the business for a number of years and then took it over and took the business over from a chap called Kev Woodland and got rid of the Ked, I think it was called Ked Woodland Shop Fitting or Shop and Office Fitters, and Mark just turned it into Woodland Shop and Office Fitters. And in 92, I started there on a bench saw because they were looking for a machinist at that stage, and me being the person always trying to get a bit more of an opportunity, continue to say if there was any opportunity on a bench or any opportunity going to site or anything, I put my hand up because I had those skills. I developed those skills. I was working on sites. I was building joinery in the other factory of where I did my time. So and that just evolved and as things happened, like as there was overtime and that sort of stuff, they put me on a bench and could see that I could actually build joinery and do stuff. It was a funny back then because, if you're a wood machinist, you're a wood machinist, and it was real. Back then, the tradesmen tended to think that you weren't good enough to be
you were pigeonholed.
Yeah, shop fitter or cabinet maker. So I just did my time and just did the hard work, put my nose down and worked pretty hard just to prove all those guys wrong, sort of thing. So we were only a small team then. It was probably, I think we were about 12 sort of staff. So, but Mark and Sue were lovely people. They ran that business like it was all us young fellas. I think it was 20, yeah, 92. Yeah, I would have been 20 at that stage. So yeah, and we were all like their sons, sort of thing. So there's a couple of older chaps, but there was a lot of young blokes who were just in there, and they were predominantly doing just shop fittings sort of stuff, lots of shop fit outs. So for me, it was an awesome opportunity to learn different sort of skills and learn different stuff. And over the next couple of years, me sort of getting myself onto a bench eventually and doing things when they needed a hand on the bench on after hours or, on the weekends, or they needed somebody to go to site. I used to put my hand up for all of that sort of stuff so they could see what I could do and how I could do it. And it just evolved from there. So
yeah, good one. Hey, 2 quick questions, mate. You said the family migrated from overseas to Griffith. Do you still have family in Griffith, or do you get back to Griffith at all?
No, mate. They all moved. The Griffith was sort of back then was a bit of a landing spot. It was, I think, back then for a lot of the Italians who moved over, it was either Griffith or North Queensland sort of thing. So our family moved to Griffith for whatever reason. I think there was a lot of fruit picking back then. So
yeah.
But my dad had done a bit of building back in Italy, and there was opportunity here in Brisbane to sort of to move up north and to do some building work sort of thing. So they took that opportunity and moved the whole family up. So the whole family moved north. So he had his parents, his brother, his sister, and as it was in those days, the family unit used to migrate,
stay together.
Yeah. So they all moved to Australia, and I was born in Brizzy. So
okay.
Yeah, I was the only one of the family born in Brisbane. So,
Mate, so tell us about Woodland Shop Fitting. How did you end up taking it over? How many employees? That type of thing.
I got to the stage in about 2003, being with the business for 11 years at that stage. I had worked myself all the way through to project manager, being a wood machinist, sitting on a bench or cutting things out for the guys to manufacture, sort of worked my way through the business to being on a bench, manufacturing joinery, and then showing that I could go to site and install, and then obviously lead site teams and that sort of thing. The opportunity came in the office for me, and the business was expanding a little bit. So I took the opportunity as a project manager there, and then took on project managing under the owner, and the boss at that stage was Mark, to look after projects all over the place. So I then got an opportunity. The business at that stage was still around the 15 sort of, pretty of a small sort of business. And their niche was just doing Michael Hills and a few other local Brisbane retail sort of projects sort of thing. So for me, I wanted again to sort of spread, not so much spread my wings, but just continue to learn and continue to develop myself as in the industry sort of thing. And I got an opportunity to move to another shop fitting company in Brisbane, which was a large shop fitting company, and probably the shop fitting company of that time, and learnt a lot. And I went with Mark and Sue's blessing, because they knew there was they couldn't sort of hold me back at that sort of stage, and they weren't in a position to sort of move on or hand the business over at that time. And probably in that thing was probably one of the best things I ever did, because I went to this other business and I learnt so much more about the professionalism of a business, I went from having, one meeting a week to having, 5 to 6 meetings a week and managing lots of different staff and a big operation and overseeing that and having some good mentors there and good leaders and amongst that. And just seeing how another operation works was really good. But I kept in contact with Mark, my old boss. We'd continually sit down and, on a Friday afternoon, we'd probably drive past and just catch up with him. And, I've always learnt you never burn bridges with where you are. You should always leave your employment on a good note, no matter where you leave and no matter what you do. I mean, as we know, our industry is so small and everybody knows everybody sort of thing. So then one day I was just happened to be, it was probably 12 months on after I'd left, and I stopped past with Mark with a six-pack and had a beer with him that afternoon, and he sort of said, "Oh, I'm glad you stopped by. I've actually was going to call you. I've had something I wanted to talk to you about." And I said, "Oh, what was that?" And he sort of said, "Oh, mate, Sue and I are going to sell Woodlands." And I went, "Oh, wow, okay." And I'd sort of got a sense over the last 6 months after I'd left that a few things had happened within the business. He'd had a lot of people work in that business that had sort of did a few things just to, and 20 years in shop fitting is a long time to manage and run a business. And just some things happened with staff, with key staff and some stuff like that I think they made a decision that it was time to move on. Mark had been in the industry for, over 30 years sort of thing, but had owned, I'm pretty sure at that stage they'd owned Woodlands for about 20 years. So it was time for them to move on. And he just looked at me and said, "Listen, I'm selling." And I said, "Oh, well, awesome. Well, good on you, mate. Probably, good for you to go and enjoy the rest of your life." And he said, "Oh, there's just a bit of a hitch to it. Sue and I would like to sell it to you and Sharon." And I sort of sat back and went, "Okay, what do you mean? Is this a joke?" And he goes, "Oh, well, we know the caliber of person you are. We know you know our business really, really well. You're a young fella and you're pretty driven and motivated. And,
go-getter.
Sharon, yeah, probably that, mate. Yeah, probably a lot of other things as well. Sharon had come through she'd come through a corporate life in managing HR and managing staff and things like that. So it was an easy fit for us to sort of push for her to come in. For me, I'd never had any aspirations ever to own a business. I was really happy to be a project manager. I love project managing, overseeing projects, being on site with a team of all the different trades and learning so much about the industry and forming some great friendships and relationships with people and people to this day still do work for Woodlands, that we've been able to formulate great friendships with. So I said to Mark, "Well, mate, let me go home and have a think about it because I think I'm going to need to." And obviously to talk it over with Sharon. We had two young kids. Dane at that stage was, I'm pretty sure he was around 2-year-old and Britt was about 5. So, and I'd just done, on the weekends, I was flipping houses. Well, and what I mean by that, I was grabbing a development and, we were investing in some development. It was a really good time to do that here in Brizzy.
Doing it up and then selling it off.
Yeah, pretty well much. And I had the skills to be able to do that. So we'd, been able to set aside a little bit of money and to do that. And so I was never at any time I was really happy where I was, had to think about it for a few days. And it's sort of the only reason why I spoke to a few good mates. And one thing I wanted to do with Sharon was I didn't want to have any regrets. And I've sort of always gone through life without having to look back and going, well, I don't want to regret not having a go. Yeah, so Mark and I organised a couple of things, and they were good enough to assist me with obviously helping with owning the business, and we did a decent deal for the both of us. And Mark stayed in for a few months to just help me find my way around and how to run a business. I at that no stage had ever run a business, had no idea how to run a business. So it was time for me to, and going back to my old days of football and captaining sides and being around good leaders and even, anything I'd ever had to do with sport, surrounding yourself with good leaders and surrounding yourself with good people has always been something that I've always really, really pushed hard to do. That was sort of the start of it. So that was in 2004.
The brand Woodlands, you mentioned there, Mark, and another gentleman had it before that. So how long has Woodlands Shop Fitting been around?
Mate, I'm pretty sure today it's over. Well, I've owned it for coming up to 17 years. Mark had it for about 20, and I think Kev had it for about 5, so over 40 years.
Okay.
The name has been around.
Kept going.
Kept going, sort of.
Is that the reason behind you haven't looked at changing the name and you've stuck with Woodlands?
The name, so when I bought it was Woodlands Shop and Office Fitters. A couple of years after that, I changed it to Woodlands Shop Fitting because predominantly we were doing shop fitting
Not
work.
office.
Not any office. It's funny how the wheel has turned, how things have changed because we're sort of back doing a number of things, and I'm sort of
You take on any work.
Yeah, pretty well much at the moment, definitely. So I definitely not doors, that's for sure. There's only a few.
I can help you there, mate. I can help you there.
Get your doors from KRGS, definitely.
I can help you there.
Yeah, so the Woodland name has always had a really good name about it. It's always been synonymous, and people call us Woodlands, although it's a little bit of a pet hate of mine. We are Woodland Shop Fitting, and I think a big thing is about your brand. Your brand is massive. People recognise your brand, and it's funny. Just a couple of days ago, I was in a meeting with an RDM from a landlord, and they hadn't worked with us for a long time, but had always known about the Woodlands reputation and the ability to get things done and
the branding.
And that name has always been synonymous. So especially here in Brisbane.
Brisbane, yeah.
No, that makes sense, and you're 100% correct. The brand is a huge thing and we tried in ours to get that brand out there as much as possible. Sometimes I don't think, but I try and get it in front of as many eyes as possible. We've got a saying here: if you think doors, think kings. So, mate, you've been in the industry or shop fitting there, owning Woodlands Shop Fitting for 17 years. What's the biggest changes you've seen in the industry?
I think just the way the industry has evolved from going from, shop fitting back in when I sort of took over the business and even before that, a shop fitting company always had a manufacturing part to the business and they obviously then, were like internal builders with an ability to manufacture their own joinery. Obviously with China and the effects of, joinery coming in from China, people have tried to, continue to be more cost effective and remove the joinery part of their business and become more like a project management, small tier builder sort of thing, and rely on joinery from elsewhere. So like from cabinet makers and those who build joinery. So I think the industry's gone really away from that. There's a lot more contractors involved in a lot of businesses these days. Years ago, a lot of shop fitting companies would have a design part to their businesses. So they would have a designer in and they would design the shop fit out, and then it would be project managed and all the joinery built under the one company and under the same umbrella. And obviously the other thing is the technology. Talking about a CNC. Talking about CNC back when I was on a table saw, it wasn't even sort of CNC were just letters and an alphabet sort of thing. Now everything comes from everything comes out of a computer package sent to a machine and is being able to drilled and cut, and the technology is that good that we've obviously got the operation here in Brisbane, but we've also got the operation in Auckland in New Zealand. And our CAD set out team have got the ability and to this day still set out and do all the drawings for the New Zealand manufacturing and send it to the machine that's in New Zealand, and it's like sending it to the machine here that's in Brisbane. So, which is pretty cool. I still scratch my head and people, when you talk to people about that, they say, wow, that's really. But it's Yeah, I suppose that they're the two things: the way things are done these days, and the business, the way the businesses are set up, and technology has become huge. It's a huge part of everything we do, and we all know that.
Even right down to Zoom meetings.
Even right down to Zoom meetings. Talking to you guys in Sydney, New South Wales, and me being in here in beautiful Queensland. So
Beautiful. Queensland.
Just on that design team side of things, mate, it's a bit of a catch-22 where it's a cost saving by not having the design team in-house, but then also if the guys on the floor have a question, it's then an email to an outside source and then possibly a phone call and then an email back, and could delay the whole process, where if it's in-house they can go directly and go, what did you mean with this drawing, or what did you try and achieve here?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right there. It's the more people that you put externally, that means your communication needs to be a hell of a lot better. And although we live in a day and age where communication is probably the best it's ever been, to the ability to communicate, people still can't communicate on point to when and how they need to, and you're right, it's easier to walk into an office to ask somebody, well, what was your idea in regards to this and how this needs to be looked at. That doesn't happen anymore. But then again, you've got the efficiencies of not having probably an additional 10 to 15% of staff sort of thing, and they're external in contractors and service providers. We're still one of only, I don't know how many are out there, but there's not many shop fitting companies that have that traditional still manufacturing. We've got a 2,000 square metre factory here in Brisbane. We've got 500 to 600 square metres of factory and warehouse in New Zealand. So we see the real value of having that manufacturing capabilities.
Yeah.
And talking about design, we do have a designer in-house here now. It's something that we've been growing for the last 2 years. We're working with we've worked with a number of designers that work out of our office here, and we've got the ability now to work in cohesion with those designers. With the designer, we've only got one here now, so it's almost, for us, it's almost come full circle. But it's all around what you're trying to deliver for your client. And I think I made a little bit of a mistake years ago that I tried to be, and not so much. It was a mistake, but at the point in time, we were known as a shop fitting company. Michael Hill was our major client, and on the back of that, we had the ability to pick up a number, another 2 or 3 large, big national clients, and we were sort of looked at as one of the shop fitters who did a lot of large national retail clients all over Australia, and we were really good at that. Retail has evolved over the last 5 to 10 years, that those nationals are doing less and less and trying to get a bit more bang for their buck in regards to how long they're trying to keep their fit outs going, because obviously from their side of things they need to compete with the online market and things. So that work is starting to obviously diminish, but there's so much more other work for us to do, and we've sort of reinvented ourselves over the last 2 years to sort of do a lot of, supply and install joinery for a lot of, niche builders that do a lot of that bespoke sort of joinery. And I'm not talking about, high-rise. I'm not talking about back in the old day of the high-rise apartments and that sort of thing, but we're doing a lot of Lee's Club, boutique, office fit-out, restaurant, hotel fit-outs that have got that real cool, funky, bespoke sort of joinery.
And you've done some great projects there, mate. One thing that I agree with you there, like this is my 32nd year in the industry this year. I noticed when I kicked off, there was a lot of joinery companies like yourself that manufacture mainly obviously here, because we're not focused, but we're in New South Wales, and there used to be plenty of shop fitters that manufactured their own joinery, and they had a joinery shop. And not only has the shop fitting industry been a dying breed where they manufacture, because you talk about the import and that from China, but there's not too many, mate, now, not only in Queensland but in New South Wales that have got their own joinery shop. And yours, I've had the opportunity to go and see yours. You've invited me up there, and mate, you've got a great team there, and the joinery that you pump out is first class.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, it's It's definitely not. It's not easy, and I totally understand why a lot of people do what they do in regards to remove themselves from their joinery side or joinery supply side of things, because you need a lot of staff to run that. You need a big team to be able to do that. So, and it's in this day and age, it's extremely tough. That's for sure. So
you've been in charge now 17 years, never run a business before that. What are the biggest challenges you face in running a business?
I think the biggest thing that I've learnt is that I needed to continue to be better and evolve as a person and as a leader and as a business owner. I'm proud to say that I'm definitely not the person that I was 5, 10, 15 years ago. Italian blood, I was pretty hot-headed. I probably told people that they had to do things a certain way, and mate, to be quite honest, that was the way I was taught, the way I was shown how to lead and how to manage and to do things. I think now, definitely after over the last 5 to 10 years, I've developed myself to be a better person first and foremost, but also a better leader, a leader of people, and to understand that how important my team are especially in our industry. I meet with a lot of people from a lot of different industries, and am a part of a few other boards and things like that, and have the opportunity to speak to a lot of business owners. And I continually say to them, you have no understanding of what our industry is like, and what's involved, and the small lead times, the pressure situations, the demands from
the deadlines, the OH&S requirements, to meet certain regulations, and for us working in different states, all of that, all amounts. But I think with that, you've got to have a good team. And to have a good team, you've got to be a good leader, and it's important for you to lead by. I've always been a person to really work harder on leading by, especially early in my youth as a leader. I tended to lead by words, and I was definitely over the last 5 to 10 years, I've learnt that I needed to be a leader that led by actions. Everybody in this world, especially as a father and as a parent and as a husband and a leader of people and men and women, that people look at you and they'll see what you do rather than listen to what you hear. So to hear what you say. If you can hold yourself in a certain way and keep improving yourself and showing the people underneath you the way forward and the way to move forward in regards to how to react to certain scenarios, how to operate within certain scenarios, and not being the person who thinks that they need to know everything, to bring good people in when's required, and to have that good nucleus of people around you, externally and internally, is extremely important.
That may have answered my next question too, which was, what do you attribute your success to? Success
is an interesting question about how people rate their own success. And to me, I don't manage success through balance sheets and P&Ls and that sort of thing. To me, success is the amount of, and I still get a kick of a new apprentice starting here. It still gives me a massive injection of energy when we're able to start a new apprentice on our books every, the last few years has been difficult to put an apprentice on, but we've continued to do that. I've always had that mindset of wanting to continue to give back to the industry that's been so good to me. That's been an incredibly important thing. But to me, it's always been really important to keep developing those kids. I've always said and I still say it to the apprentices, and pretty well much nearly any staff member that starts here, is if you bring a good work ethic and a positive attitude, and because those things to me, they're not something that that you learn. They're not a skill. They're an attitude based thing. if you've got an ability to bring good energy and a good work ethic and a positive attitude to our business, I've said to the apprentices, but even senior staff that have started, we'll teach you the rest, because not everybody knows everything. So especially young people, and that's, I've always said that to them. It's really important for you guys to bring those two skills, because then if you've got those two skills, then you've got an ability to and for me, I always continue to say to them, when I'm looking at a kid across the table, that I was in your shoes. I'm no way at your age. I was no smarter, and probably I left school at grade 10. So most of the kids today have gone to grade 12 and have got decent acumens behind them.
Yeah.
So I try to relate it back to them. That's everything I've learnt along the way, and continue to test that. For me, for my success is continued to success. To me, it's infinite. Success for me is infinite. It's an ability to continue to keep getting better, being better every day, being a better father, a better parent, a better husband, and a better leader within my business. To me, that's how I rate myself as success. But it's also about the people that I've actually generated to become better people themselves. To me, what I do today is all about creating better people underneath me. So, and that means holding myself accountable first and foremost, and making sure that I'm leading by those actions, because then it's easy for me to hold others to that same accountability. And the hard thing about that is, though, some people just, they get to a point where, they want something and they want to be something, but they're not prepared to put the work and the effort and become accountable for their actions and the way they do things. So
it's interesting that you say about bring the attitude and then I can teach you the skills. In one of our earlier episodes, Denny Ellisard, who's one of our suppliers from CW Products, business owner, same type of scenario, and he pretty much said the same thing word for word. If you bring the right attitude, I'll teach you the skills.
To me, attitude's everything. Attitude's around energy and the way you conduct yourself. So it's the one thing that you can control. Lots of people have lots of things happen in their life, and the successful people have got the ability to move on quickly.
Yeah.
Not to say that things that happen in life are terrible. 100% they're terrible, and some things people go through are extremely tough and terrible. But it's the really successful people who have got the ability to move on and see the light at the end of the tunnel and go one step at a time and create a plan to move forward, so that, and keep themselves accountable to keep moving forward, so that they don't have that whatever's happened previously.
And also in your line of business, bringing it from the top as well, if you've got the right attitude, there's nothing worse than that young apprentice see you coming down the stairs in the factory, think, oh, here comes that grumpy bastard again. If you're coming down going, g'day, mate, how's your day going? All of a sudden he's going, how good's this? I want to be at work every day. I want to do the great job.
Yeah, and you're right, mate. Like it starts with me, and that's what I was sort of saying before. It starts with me and my actions and the way I conduct myself and the way I do things. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, as we all aren't, but I hold myself to that accountability. That the energy that I bring to my business every day is I'm responsible for. Nobody else is responsible for that. I'm responsible for that. So
I can tell you a story. I can tell you a story about Woodland Shop Fitting. I had an opportunity a couple of years ago, and I've been there a couple of times now, and as recent as I think last March, Dad and myself went to call in to see Casa and his team there. And they've got a great team, and they really pride themselves on looking after the team that they've got there at Woodland Shop Fitting. And they make a big thing out of it. And I can tell you now, I've taken some of the things that Woodland Shop Fitting do in their model, and I've moulded it into what we do here at KRGS. Like, for example, the honour board, it's a big thing that you have there. Your honour board, you've got all your staff there from 5, 10, 15, 20, right up to over 25 years of staff. And they make a big thing of it at the time that they've been with the business. And they promote it and they put it on their socials. And I can tell you now, we've stolen that idea and we put it into our business here. But just there's opportunities that I've seen when you've been with you and you walk through the factory and you see all your staff, mate, and g'day, it's all, you know, I mean, you're on the same level as them. You're not higher than them. You know exactly the same as what they are, and you treat them exactly the same. And the barbecues and the fundraisers and the things that you put on for your staff out of hours, you should be really well and truly congratulated, mate, there for what you do with your team. And I know you make a big thing out of it. And everyone, I don't see an unhappy face, or it'd be unusual to see an unhappy face there at Woodland Shopfit, and it all starts from the top with yourself, mate. So you should be congratulated, the stuff that you do there with your staff, because it, from me being an outsider and inviting me to come in and have a look at that, it doesn't go unnoticed, I'll tell you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate that. That's some very kind words. And it's a day-to-day thing, and that, like, we don't have a foolproof remedy.
No.
And but like you said, I'm in. You know, I'm accountable for that, because if I can conduct myself and hold myself to those values of the way I conduct myself, the way I act in every engagement with, whether it be with a staff member or how it is on the phone, you know, to a client or a contractor or a supplier, you know, that's how I sort of, it's important for me to set the tone.
Correct.
Because if I'm setting the tone, then, you know, those underneath me are,
they're just going to follow.
You know, exactly. Well, it's up to them to follow.
Correct.
So it's what they're accountable for then.
Away from work, Michael, how do you relax?
That's a good question. Some people would say probably, do I relax? Mate, I'm pretty proud that I'm the head trainer at the Redcliffe Dolphins. I've been in that role for over 10 years now, been associated with the club from a role of coach and assistant coach, and now I've been with the first grade team for over 10 years. It's a massive kick. It's getting to be a bigger and bigger job every day of the week, but I do love it. It's always been given me that ability. I'm a big person that I don't believe in work-life balance. I think work-life balance isn't correct. I think your life should be balanced, because there's plenty of times, and as business owners or people that work within businesses or small businesses, there's days where you're working weekends, late nights, and things like that, and that's what you do. That's what you have to do.
You've got to make it happen.
You got to make it happen. Exactly right. But if you're continually doing that day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, that's not balanced. So it's really important for you to create some balance in your life so that you've got an ability to, you know, to do a lot of other things. I like adventure, or I've liked to get out and see the world. I've you know, done Kokoda. I've you know, done the Aussie 10 Peaks, which is the 10 highest peaks in Australia. I've been to Kilimanjaro and summited Kilimanjaro, and I was on my way to Russia to summit the highest peak in Europe, which was Elbrus, which is in Russia, last year, and unfortunately that had to get called off. So yeah, I've got definitely some plans. I've always been interested in Everest. I definitely won't climb Everest to the peak, but I'll get to base camp one day. I've always had a bit of an affinity with that. I like to keep pretty fit, mate. I train pretty well 6 days a week. I sit on a couple of boards. I'm lucky enough to be a director of our association board. I also sit on the Rugby League Brisbane board. And I enjoy having a surf. I enjoy having a breakfast with my family, dinners with my family. You know, it's all that stuff. I try and cram in a hell of a lot in my life that I can get, because it's important for me to do that. But I try and do it as much balance as I can, mate.
That's 100% right. Where you said that sort of life balance is key.
Mate, you mentioned there the Redcliffe Dolphins. They're obviously the favourite to join the 17th club to join the NRL. What's that mean for the area and for yourself?
Oh, man, it'd be a fantastic thing for the area. I think Brisbane has been screaming out for another club for a number of years to play up here. the Redcliffe and the Moreton Bay area is probably, I think it's probably the second or third largest council area in Australia. It's got, some of the stats out that are coming out in regards to the growth of that area and how large that area is. So it's an exciting thing for the area. I live in the area. I have done all my life. The area is 100% supportive. The Moreton Bay Council is 100% supportive of the Redcliffe Dolphins and this bid to get into the NRL. What does that mean for me, mate? I'm one step at a time. I don't know if I could commit to a job within the club and make that's a long way to go. They've got to, and it's a long way at the moment because from what I'm hearing, the NRL haven't set the agenda of what the actual criteria is, what the club's got to meet and support.
I think their criteria goes out in April, and I think they make a decision in June or something, I believe.
Yeah, mate, something like that. So I think it'd be fantastic for Brisbane in itself, not just the Moreton Bay area, but for Brisbane in itself to have a second NRL.
Yeah, agree. It has been crying out for, and this the infrastructure that the Redcliffe Dolphins there they've got is, I don't know if anyone's been to an opportunity to go and see it, but yeah, it's brilliant. It's fantastic. I wouldn't mind it at Cogra, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very well. The Brisbane Roar play out of there, and they're playing their home games out of there at the moment. So that's all televised and going through there. So they've done a fantastic job. The place has changed definitely in the last 20 years, but it's all through vision and through some good leadership within that club to get it to where it is today. So.
Well, I heard a stat the other day that if Redcliffe were accepted, they'd be only one of a few teams that would be profitable in the NRL. Like these guys have been around for over 100 years and they're not profitable, but if Redcliffe come in, they'd be only one of a few teams.
Second richest or something because obviously the Roosters would be the top one. Is that right?
Yeah. The assets behind the club are pretty solid. So, so and they've done that too, and that's what I said. The leadership from the club has been extremely, and they've continued to want to. This has been a dream of theirs for a number of years, and it's not about. It's Redcliffe has always just wanted to play in the best competition in Australia. They wanted to be known to play in the best. They did that to play in the best competition in Brisbane, and then the next step was
stepping stones.
Yeah. So
good luck to them.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, to wrap up our podcast, mate, we usually ask our Fast 5 questions, but from our chat today, I've got 2 more, so I'm going to change it to the Super 7 questions. My first one is, you mentioned that you're a footy player. What position did you play?
I was a hooker, mate. Yeah, back in the day, I was back when it was played a lot differently what it was played today. Definitely sure. Definitely.
Is that where you got your good looks?
No. I was lucky enough I didn't get the head smashed up too much. So, but yeah, it was a hooker. So I tried hard. Let's put it that way.
My next question is: you mentioned cricket, batter or bowler?
Yeah, well, I used to as a young fellow, I used to open the bowling. But as I got a bit older, I got a bit wiser and like to bowl probably about second change and bat about 6 or 7. So. But as you got a bit older, you always, you lost a bit of the steam and the firepower and the mongrel in you that you could deliver those balls back in the day. But yeah, definitely, probably somebody bowled about first or second change, and used to like to bowl. I used to liken myself to Terry Alderman. I could swing the ball a little bit, so
medium pacer.
Yeah, bit of that.
So when you were young, that hot-headed Italian coming in off the fence around the boundary, steaming in, bowling every ball half pitch up under the chin type of thing.
Yeah, I've still got a mate of mine who reminds me how he hit me over three fields for 6. So he's a good mate of mine. He continues to remind me of that. And
that's a fair hit.
He was getting under my skin one day, and I decided to exactly what you just said. Then trying to push off the back fence, tried to bowl short at him, and he told me basically not so out of terms to go and pick up the ball back.
Yeah. You know the colour of it? You know the colour of it? Go and pick it up.
Exactly. So,
Now, what would be your last meal?
my last meal. Well, that's a tough one. Well, being an Italian, it'd have to be a nice plate of gnocchi or ravioli. I think it's something I don't eat a lot today because I'm trying to look after myself. But definitely a nice plate of gnocchi would be fantastic, I think.
You're a good cook, mate. You get in the kitchen?
No, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a good cook. I don't see the value in it. I just would just go. I just looking. And my problem is I hate. I love to be clean and tidy.
Yeah.
I don't see any value of making a heap of mess to go. Well, it's going to be about 10 minutes of fun. I love going out to dinner and like to going out to eat. Definitely. But just for me at home would be just easy having a barbecue, put some prawns on.
That's the go. Now you're talking.
And another couple of nice beers with some nice friends.
Now you're talking.
Your drink of choice?
My drink of choice, that's interesting. But probably the go-to is to have a nice vodka lime and soda. So vodka lime and soda. It's funny enough, I'm doing a crazy thing every year. I try and do something a little bit different to sort of challenge myself.
What's the crazy thing of 2021?
The crazy thing of 2021, a couple of mates of mine did 100 days no alcohol last year. So for me, I thought, bugger them, I'm going to show them. So I'm going to do 200 days. So I'm actually coming up to 50 days no alcohol. So look out about August 3.
Geez, you'll be letting loose, won't you? Wait for you on the trip away. Jesus, wow.
Yeah, yep. So no alcohol at the moment. But
good on you.
I don't really have but probably my go-to is just have a nice vodka.
Your favourite holiday destination?
Depends if I want to surf or ski. So can I have two?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you can, mate.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough and blessed enough and grateful to be able to. Before COVID, we used to we'd have a summer holiday and we'd have a winter holiday. And summer holiday, I've been going up the coast in Queensland to a place called Caloundra. You probably know it well.
Yes.
Where I've sort of learned to surf there and growing up there and had family holidays. My wife's family, I've had family holidays there as well, and it's almost like a second home to me. So going there, I think that's a fantastic place to go just to relax and to have a great time. Going that would be getting our summer holiday.
Your winter.
Winter would be heading over to Canada. Canada, big white. Skiing over there is absolutely beautiful. The people are amazing, fantastic people, and it is a beautiful place. But I've been to some fantastic places, and and fingers crossed I get to see so many more. To me, life for me is one of the important things that I try and live my life by is whatever you do, you should be trying to make memories. Because it's pretty well much the only thing you can take with you when you move on from this life. So to me, it's to try and make as many memories and to go and visit as many places that I can. And I've been so blessed to see some great places. Going to Africa was amazing, to Kilimanjaro, being with some fantastic people. PNG, the people that we trekked, the Kokoda trek was amazing. So, pretty hard, mate. I know I haven't answered your question. Pretty hard to
pinpoint it. It's pretty hard to pinpoint.
Definitely.
What is one of your weird quirks?
I bite my nails. It's a terrible thing that I do. I bite my nails terribly. So my wife still smacks me on the side of the hands like.
I didn't know it was a weird quirk to bite your nails. I do the same.
I'm the same as well.
Yeah. Well, is that not a weird quirk?
Maybe. Coming from me, mate, I'm eating them too. So no, I'm not. It's not weird.
If you ate your toenails, that might be a weird one.
Yeah, I'll give it. Yeah, exactly right.
I find too, and it's I don't notice it, but I find too when I'm watching the kids' sport, I'm even worse. And my daughter Taylor, she played in a soccer grand final a few years ago, and I actually chewed my nail down, and I looked down. It was a 1-1 draw, and they were into extra time, and I had blood coming from it. I chewed it that much. So
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I'm the same.
I know how you're feeling there.
I'm the same watching St George games.
well, I'm usually crying because they're shit house. So, and
Oh,
finally, mate, if heaven does exist, what would God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I'd like him to say, holy hell, how did you fit all that in? That's what I'd like him to say, and that's what I'm trying to do, as much as I can while I'm on this earth, so that when I get there, he goes, how the hell...
How'd you jam all that into one lifetime?
You've lived the life of 5 people, not the life of one. So that's what I'm aiming for.
Good work. Casa, mate, fantastic to listen to your story and to come on and give us your time today. Mate, you're doing a tremendous job there, not only with Redcliffe Dolphins and the Queensland Rugby League, but also the business that you're in there at Woodland Shop Fitting. And like I said to you earlier, you lead by the front, and you're doing a tremendous job. And I really appreciate giving up your time and coming on and having a chat with us. And for those people out there, Woodland Shop Fitters do a massive effort on social media. Get onto them and have a look at their Instagram and so forth, because they really push it and on different projects and different items that they do. So get on there and have a look at get along and follow them. But mate, thanks very much again. Talk soon. It's great to catch up, and can't wait to see you in the flesh shortly.
No worries, boys. Thanks very much. I know it's taken a bit of time for us to catch up, probably over 6 months for us to sort this out. But no, I appreciate your time, and obviously I'm pretty honoured for you guys to ask me to come on board and listen to my story. Thanks very much.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.
Thanks very much, mate. Cheers again.
Take care.
That wraps up the 28th episode and our chat with Michael Casablanca from Woodland Shop Fitting. For more information on Woodland Shop Fitting, you can visit www.woodlandshopfitting.com.au or see their amazing work on Instagram at Woodland Shop Fitting. If you have missed any previous episodes of the KRGS Doors podcast, you can download them from our website, www.krgsdoors.com.au/podcast, or on your favourite podcast player, search KRGS Doors. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. This also boosts our ranking and my ego. The other thing I suggest, if you have enjoyed the podcast, visit your favourite podcast player and leave a review or a rating. On our next episode, we speak to Sean McMartin, Head of Consumer Business for the National Rugby League, where we talk all things on business side of rugby league, from Magic Round to State of Origin to the Grand Final, and we find out why it costs $40 for a pie, chips and a beer at the footy. I've been your host, Drew Blackman, and you've been fantastic for tuning in today. As always, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Thanks. Till next time. The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, folding closures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au.